Hello, everyone watching on YouTube and listening on Spotify. It's another episode of NRG Insights. And for those that don't know, this is just where we speak to influential people in the market, find out a little bit more about their business and kind of, as it says, insights into the market. So today I've got Matt Watson, who is the CEO of Tenn Capital. Thanks for joining me, Matt.
Thanks, Marcus. Thanks for having me.
No problem at all. So if we just start with, tell me about your financial services journey up to being CEO of Tenn.
Yeah, of course. So I guess I took a pretty odd route to Tenn. So I studied the very useful American history and politics at university.
Perfect.
Which, it was a natural step from that topic into the city. Of course, I never forget the first interview I ever had. The sort of the guy who ended up actually hiring me, he said, because I didn't do a lot at university, or I did all the stuff you're not supposed to do, depending on how you look at it. And he sort of said, you got, average degree, average course, you've got to really kind of work hard and all those kinds of things. So it was first step into the city was a kind of baptism of fire in the investment world.
Yeah.
And started out as a graduate trainee for an investment bank, and became a trader. And sort of being an exit point for a wealth management division, trading equities, bonds, options, foreign exchange, those kinds of things. Great kind of schooling and sort of grounding in the industry, kind of figuring out how the world works and that type of thing. So I did that for a few years, and then when late 2008 came around, I think it was. I got asked whether or not I wanted to come back to Guernsey and help start up a investment management stockbroking business.
Mm-hmm.
So,
are you Guernsey originally, then, Matt?
So I was born in the UK but grew up here. So my family's from here. This is home to me, right? So came back in 2008, and then 6 weeks later, Lehman Brothers happened, which was gave you kind of
killer
a few months of thinking, what the hell are we doing? So a pretty scary time for a new business, right? But it was kind of pretty counterintuitive in the sense that for a new investment management business, it was pretty, we had a bunch of capital to start with, and it was pretty easy. We'd managed to hold on to it, but it was a pretty easy time to sort of say, right, Lehman's has just gone, the world's kind of creeping at the edges, it's not the time to deploy any money. And then, so that was the first good decision we made. The second big decision that we got right was in March 2009. We decided to kind of go into the market.
Yeah.
So we had a really good kind of first 12 months, despite the first couple of months thinking, what have we done here?
Yeah. That was genuinely frightening, though. Did you have no backup plan as such? You're like, this is what we're going to be doing, and because the world wasn't ready for it. No, there was no backup plan. And as we go on through the story, you'll realise that that's a recurring theme through my career. Yeah, it's kind of moving the chips all in. But it was I can remember sat because I just bought a house, my first house. Yeah.
Back in Guernsey. I remember watching Bloomberg they had the sort of the indices in the bottom right hand corner of the screen, and they just showed 100 points, 200 points, 300 points, and so it was a pretty scary time. I don't know if you really appreciate kind of quite how monumental it could be when I was as young as I was. I was only sort of 24, 25 at that time, but yeah, still pretty spicy.
Yeah. I was in commercial finance, and I remember it going, and Lehman Brothers were actually the funding line for, I think it was Commercial First or something at the time. So everything just disappeared, and I knew nothing about it because I'd been taken from a completely different industry. So I just thought we were just making easy money. Then all of a sudden, we went into a meeting, and they said, right, there's no funding line, and I was clueless about it. You already had a backing. You had a good backing, right, going through the kind of the banking, investment banking. I was chucked into the deep end, and I was like, right, I honestly don't know where to go from there. Don't know how to put money around.
Yeah, well, I assume someone else is going to give us the money, right?
Who's got the money then? Because we need to lend it.
Well, and it's one of those things where you start to, if you went through that period, I think, especially if you went through it young, you only kind of come, it's only since that time that you realize quite how kind of seismic it was.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it was, like, especially when you watch like, The Big Short or something like that, and you kind of remember those things happening, right?
I sold that mortgage.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, we stayed with that business for a few more years, and then in 2012 we sold. So we sold for a reasonable amount of money to a listed asset manager called Brooks Macdonald. Stayed with them for a couple of years, and through that time kind of took on more and more responsibility, kind of typical, I guess, career progression.
Yeah. Was that part of your sellout, or was that just that you wanted to stay with them and you learnt the big corporate?
Yeah, so no, I wanted to stay with them, and I think I was still pretty young at the time. Although I was one of the sort of the early shareholders, I wouldn't say I was one of the big kind of movers and shakers in that business, right? I was still in the kind of learning phase, trying to pick up as much knowledge as I can, and it was you sort of just standard career progression. And by the time I left, I worked hard, right? And by the time I left, I was a director of the business, and I was responsible for a decent chunk of it here in the Channel Islands. But it got to a stage where I was still relatively young, had good experience, and I wanted to kind of try something else, right? It was so this was the first time, or the second time, where I decided to kind of throw the cards in, and I resigned. I didn't necessarily have anything to go to. It was just I knew that I didn't want to do that anymore.
Yeah. How do you? Can I speak to people? Obviously, I'm in recruitment, so the resigning without anything to go to. I mean, I just spoke to someone this morning about the same thing, because they're confident they've got a 6-month notice period, etc. But for me, like it's a worrying thing, right? Because you kind of know what you know what you don't want to do, but you still haven't got exactly what you want in your head.
Well, I think it comes down a lot, and this isn't necessarily specific to me, but it does work for me. Yeah. It's about knowing what drives you, right? Knowing what drives yourself. And for me personally, fear is a massive motivator, right? Fear of failure. So for me to put myself in that position, like that's a really big motivator. That's kind of where I'm, not necessarily
better under pressure, right? When you got a bit more on the line.
Yeah, exactly. And it also forces you to ask yourself some kind of soul searching questions, right? What do you want out of life? What do you want to do for, like, working careers are long. Yeah. At the time I was 30, it's like, okay, what do you want to do for the next 30, 40, 50 years?
Yeah.
Right. And I sort of, that during that time after I'd left and I was kind of on garden leave, I think it was over Christmas and New Year, I kind of figured out that the bit that I really loved about that initial period was the chaos of a startup, the building of a business, the scaling of that. That was what I really loved. So during that period, I started a couple of, 3 businesses, in fact. Yeah. 2 of them ended up failing, right, for one reason or another. And one of them, I'm not involved in anymore. I sold out after 3 years, but it's doing phenomenally well. So still a really, really valuable business with offices in 3 or 4 different jurisdictions. And again, what I kind of figured out in that period was I absolutely loved building something out of nothing, and that kind of and everything that went along with that process. So I think to jump, it's not for everyone, right? Jumping with nothing to go to. If you use it in the right way, it can add a lot of value to you as an individual, right? You've got to know what you're looking for.
It's interesting as well. It kind of how you are as an individual is the same as the love of startup. That love of we're much the same as resigning from your job with nothing to go to. Is that being able to go? Do you know what? I'm going to start with nothing and build it up again. It's you've got to be a particular mindset for that, right? You can't. It's not like you say. It's not for everyone.
Yeah, it's not for everyone. And even if you're not happy in your current role, right? You can do it in different ways, right? You can go and you can go on a holiday for a week to Scotland and do a load of soul searching, right? And you don't necessarily have to jump.
Don't just resign tomorrow.
You don't have to jump off the cliff, right? Yeah, exactly. So, and then later that year in 2016, that was when I kind of, for the first time, became involved in lending, and started with a sort of a family office and an asset manager,
Yeah.
sort of building their, helping to build their lending operation. And what I found is that there's a huge similarity between the investment world and what we see as alternative lending, non-bank lending.
Yeah.
Huge similarities. And that was in the end, it was a business called Amberton and Sankers.
Yeah.
So Sankers, I think, is still well known business and operating in the UK space and here in the Channel Islands. Stayed with them for a few years, and I think it got to a point, 2020, late 2020, middle of COVID, where I got to a point again where I was ready to run a business, right? Ready to start from scratch again, see if we could build something in this space.
So was that, were you, was it not like your baby, those ones? Were you part of it as opposed to?
Part of it. Yeah. Those weren't, all those previous businesses, I think. Yeah. It was being a sort of a cog in that wheel, right? It was contributing to that rather than being the one leading it.
Oh yeah. And did you always, I know, I keep butting in, sorry, but did you always,
no, go for it,
did
man.
You see yourself, have you always seen yourself as someone who wants to be at the helm? Is that always been like the goal for you to go, look, this is as much as you love the startup, if you're not being the director, if you like, or actually directing the business, sailing the ship, was it always a goal, or has it just naturally turned out like that?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't always the goal. Actually, it was. It's just. I think as you get older, right, you start to have ideas about, potential markets, potential offerings, potential sort of ways that you could grow a business in a particular space. And I think the older you get, the more realizable it becomes. Yeah. Especially in financial services, right? Because it's not cheap to start. Yeah. There are barriers to entry, and at some point, I think you have to ask yourself again, like whether or not you want to find out the answer to that question, or do you always want to be the guy who had football trials at 11? Yeah, right? Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
What do you got with that? One dodgy hamstring.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it'd be nice, So for me, it was never like the goal.
Yeah.
But it's nice. It was always about making that jump and figuring out if we could.
Yeah.
If I could do it.
Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was. For 2021, we started Tenn, and we started. We launched with no money. We launched with nothing. Right. We had no money to pay anyone. No money to lend, which is, I think you'll agree, a pretty bold strategy for a lending business. It's tough for a lender, yeah. It's a difficult. Yeah. But what we did have is a really clear idea about what type of lender we wanted to build.
Yeah.
And I think, we had the right message at the right time with the right team. And we managed to sort of get out the ground and get going and build the business to where we are today.
Amazing.
So there you go. That was my.
That's really I genuinely
10, 15 minutes.
Yeah, no, but obviously that half of that was me interrupting you and asking you questions about it. But yeah. Just in regards to that vision, why was it? What was it that? Because obviously you've got a great niche in the market, right? And we tell people about that if they don't know who you are, or, what you do. Tell people about that kind of that niche that you hold in the market and where that kind of came from.
Yeah, so I think if you look at the market, the lending market in general, in the UK specifically, I think there's some great businesses doing some great work and have been doing so for a long time, right? Yeah. And it's a crowd. There's a lot of people doing it, right?
240 short-term lenders at the moment, or something.
Is it 240? Right. Okay. Lines, I didn't know the number.
Family offices and three mates with money and that kind of thing,
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a lot, right? And I think if you're a new business looking to start in this space, you really need to ask yourself whether or not you're going to add value, right? And contribute to an efficient market and serve customers in a way that, really plugs a gap. And what we found when we looked at the market is that it was very well served at the time, below kind of 4 or 5 million. Yeah. And in the UK, that number's probably gone up now, right? It's probably pretty well served actually under 8, 9, 10 million, right? But that number of people, of lenders operating above 10 million and then also operating internationally was, that competition, that kind of that service really dropped away pretty significantly and dramatically, right? So And we felt that given where we're from, being in Guernsey, very well connected into kind of other international jurisdictions, we, not because necessarily we're smarter than everyone else, but by osmosis, right? Because of where we're from, we've grown up with a lot of this international cross-border structuring stuff. So we felt that we were kind of pretty uniquely positioned to be able to offer that service to that market. So we effectively lend, and this has been the vision from very early on in the business, right? 1 million and above secured against international residential real estate.
Yeah.
And we'll do that around the world, and genuinely around the world. That's not just a kind of a nice tagline, right? We've lent in 19 different jurisdictions from one side of the planet to the other, and many places in between. So, it's been a real kind of interesting process to go through. We figured out why no one's done it.
I was going to say, surely, do you ever look at something and go, no one's done that, and then you go, oh, why? Like, it's a tough gig.
Yeah, well, we know why now.
So many different, even like the legalities of it, surely is so much more complex than you can see why 240 people stick to that Resi bridge.
Yeah.
In the UK. No.
Well, I think it's interesting, right? You can so when you look at sort of setting up a business, I think you can look at it in a couple of different ways, especially as a lending business. So you can do what many people do, which is stick to the one jurisdiction and have a wide product range within that, right? There's nothing wrong with that. And some people do that exceptionally well. If you want to do what we've done, which is kind of fairly narrow product range, helping a specific type of borrower with a specific type of asset and all this type of stuff. Like, how do you build in that scalability, right? So for us, the answer has been, again, from very early on, that our focus and the scalability has been understanding that top 1% of clients, right? We work with them day in, day out. We know what they want. We know what they like. So we've really concentrated on being like the sort of the scalable business part of our business, if you like, is that real deep core understanding of kind of high net worth private clients who are looking to kind of use us in many different ways against many different types of assets. So because you're right, because the complexity in structuring, in the sort of the enforcement, every country's got different enforcement rules. The regulatory frameworks, all of these kinds of things. That's a deep piece of work on every transaction we do. So the one bit that we can kind of transfer that intellectual property, if you like, from deal to deal, is that deep understanding of high net worth individuals, no matter where they may be.
And in regards to that, about obviously we speak to a lot of brokers who, some people think they work with high net worth clients, right? I think, and some people just do big mortgages. Like, if you're in the city, you work on big mortgages. It's not like, but actually what is it that helps you kind of maintain that high net worth client demographic?
So I think firstly, no high net worth client under the bonnet is the same, right? They're all incredibly different. But knowing the questions to ask them, right? Knowing how they like to be communicated with, right, is critical. These guys are successful people. They're sophisticated. They tend to have advisors around them. They don't particularly like spending money, right? There's a common theme, right? There's a common theme through all of these guys. So, we like to interact with them in a particular way. So the thing that we talk about regularly is that we offer a kind of concierge service, right? It's a high touch, high value service. So if you come to us and you want to get a deal done in 4 weeks in a particular jurisdiction, you sort of sign up with us and you get us 24 hours a day and we're available to you and we'll get that deal done. So it's that real, we sort of go in the extra mile. We don't have like, we're not doing like 2, 3, 4, 5 deals a day, right? We're sort of, there's no real massive engine at the core of Tenn in that sense. There's a kind of a very specific, dedicated approach to high value transactions. So I think it's that being able to talk to them in a particular way, give them the service that they need, and then at the end of it, deliver. Right.
Get the outcome. And do you think that's the same across? It doesn't matter however you're servicing those clients. That's the same across the board, right? Whether you're a mortgage broker, doing a £5 million resi mortgage. It's still the same, right? It's just about how you treat the customer and how they want to be treated.
Yeah, exactly. And also, I mean, in these kind of deals, I'm sure it's the same on every deal, right? It's very rare that you get a deal that's super smooth from back to front.
That all makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Yeah. This is brilliant. Let's do this. This is right. That's very rare.
Yeah.
So when you get bad news or when you reach a bump in the road, communicating that directly, right? Being honest, no shirking behind, a difficult conversation, and actually you're much quicker. You're much more likely to get to a quick resolution.
Yeah.
If you can have kind of direct conversations.
These guys are astute as well, right? And it's not saying that you should treat everyone the same, right? Treat everyone like they're a top client, but like you said, these are sophisticated clients, aren't they? You just have to be honest and upfront and say exactly what the problems are or how you can overcome them.
Yeah, because a lot of times the clients that we speak to, right, they can, because of the function of who they are, they can often find themselves where they've got, people around them who maybe aren't giving them kind of direct responses to stuff or helping them with stuff, right? A lot of
yes men, exactly. There must not be.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of these...
that actually, because obviously if you're in that space that you're surrounded by yes men, and you've got a guy going, look, this is what needs to happen to make this deal done. Is that a barrier, or is that something that they actually respect? Do you find?
No, and this is what I mean, right? If you're direct in those conversations, and actually making it clear that we want to do these deals as well, right? We want, we don't have a business if we're not lending money, right? We want to lend people money that are credible, that I've got a good story, I've got a good asset base, etc., etc. And if you hit a barrier, showing that our interests are aligned here, right? And if we don't, and if we don't work together to cross over here, it's not going to get done. So even if you're the only guy in the room telling what the problems are, right? That's okay, but you've got to be honest about what the problems are.
Amazing. And so again, we've talked about this offer as well, but it's kind of most lenders have gone the opposite direction to you, right? In that they start to do the bigger stuff later on, but that was always your conscious vision, as you said, is to get hold of that big stuff. But we have been speaking about, and there are some potential stuff coming up. Is that right? You are looking at different product ranges?
Yeah. So we always said that when we started that we were kind of we'd lend as a service, right? That we'd never have products, we would never do it, and here we are, sort of arriving 3.5 years in, and we're probably going to have to call it, a different type of product, right? Yes. So I'm going to look stupid by the time or more stupid by the time this comes out. But yeah, so I mean, one of the things that we've sort of found is that certainly in the UK, we get shown a lot more types of deals in the UK than we do in different in other jurisdictions, and we haven't necessarily had the appetite for it to begin with, but we do think for the types of clients that we speak to that there is a space here to kind of move into the UK in a bit more of a sort of a bigger way. So we will be launching kind of a broader service, if I can call it. I won't call it a product. A broader service in the UK that will kind of, I think, we'll be able to kind of offer the market, and it'll be
same client. You talk about the same clientele, just a different way of servicing.
Yeah, so I think we'll probably reduce our minimum slightly. We'll reduce our minimum slightly down towards 500,000, but really still focusing on the types of clients that we like, right, and that we speak to.
I was going to say our lights just gone off there. You can see that, but it doesn't. I don't suppose it really matters about the size of the deal, if you like. It's more about, you're still the same vision, right? You're still servicing a demographic of people that need you.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And it's about being able to work with these guys, right? So often the way that the clients that we speak to, they want you to, whether it's solve a problem or help them take advantage of an opportunity elsewhere in their lives, right? So the more levers that we have in the business to be able to execute on that, right? That's what we that's the rationale from our perspective for wanting to move into the UK and a little bit more.
So you can help them. Also, Do you not? I don't know if this
Yeah,
comes up with
exactly.
you, that if they are not, if they're speaking to someone else about their smaller deals potentially, that is someone else who's going to be part of that touch group of people where
100%, right? So and that is, again, that is another reason
yeah,
why you've just hit the nail perfectly on the head. So, one of the things, we've been working on this now for some time, right? We've kind of not been public about it, but we've been working on it for some time. And, by the time this comes out, Marcus, we'll be announcing a pretty significant institutional banking funding line that will kind of sit behind this and, be able, sort of enable us to deliver on these plans. But it's exactly what you just said, right? That because wealthy people and the sophisticated clients that we talk to in this market now, they're no longer what they were 30, 40 years ago, right? So 30, 40 years ago, the kind of sophisticated private client was born in the UK, works in the UK, has got his holiday home in the UK, and everything he's got was in the UK.
Yeah.
Fast forward to today, they might have been born in France, holiday home in Dubai, businesses in the UK, but they live in Miami, right? So they're international, they're cross-border, right? So the ability to be able to structure bespoke financing packages for these guys, no matter if it's a million quid or 100 million quid, if you can help them and deliver on that promise, you get you're a party to the next conversation when that next problem crops up.
Yeah. Like you say, you've done it the other way around. Normally people will chuck a couple of small deals at someone, see if it works. If that works, they go the other way. But you're just kind of you're solving the problem at the bottom end because you've already fixed the top side, right?
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of that was, like I say, the background that we had, the kind of, the JV partnership that we launched very early on in the business with Elliot. And, that was the focus. But I think to be able to work across a client's life cycle, right? Solve their kind of any smaller problems that they might have. And then, all the way up to kind of the international big stuff that we do day in, day out.
Amazing. And how is that, selling that proposition, if you like, to like funding lines and stuff, because they know that it works, like the vanilla, or not vanilla, but like the UK based, everything's here, it works really well.
Yeah.
How's that trying to sell that proposition going? Well, no one else does it. Has it always been quite tricky?
Yeah. So this is one of the big problems, right?
Yeah.
This is one of the really big challenges.
People like safe money, right? Especially the further up the ladder you go.
Yeah, and also, if you look at like where financing comes from, like most of it comes from like banks, right? Whether it's investment banks or clearing banks or whatever. And it makes sense when you say it out loud, but when we started, we had no idea, right? So when you go back, and I pitched a lot of businesses looking for financing at the start. The reason why this opportunity exists is the same reason that there is this problem, right? And it's how banks are kind of set up. They're geographically siloed, right? So HSBC in, a European country is almost completely segregated to HSBC in the UK.
You're right.
So if you go to the London arm of HSBC and you say, I'm going to do all this international stuff and it's going to be great, they're going to be like, yeah, cool, but I'm going to have to give that. I'm going to have to give that to my colleagues over there, and you're sharing revenue, and it's tough, right? So the answer is that was the hardest thing to get over.
I bet it must
the
be
hardest
tricky
thing.
Yeah, like you say, if it doesn't feather their nest, they're a bit like, well, or if it's too complex as well. They know how to make money, don't they? Everyone's making money the same way, dealing with UK residents in UK property, and it works. So for you to come in and change the status quo. It must have been difficult to have those conversations.
Yeah, it was. There was. I think I spoke to just over 200 funders.
Really?
Looking for money, and it was COVID. It was the back end of COVID. There wasn't a lot to do, so I kind
of happy to talk to someone.
Yeah, it was nice to talk to people in the end. But yeah, it was. That was probably the biggest hurdle to get over and figure out in terms of how we could find someone who was willing to back this vision of kind of targeting this particular type of client base rather than kind of a geographic silo.
Amazing. Good. And in regards to, so starting from scratch, right? So you, marketing wise, you have to make sure that you're aiming at the right people. And I had this conversation with brokers specifically, actually, rather than lenders, but how they kind of, it's not always the customer in mind when they're doing it. Is that something that you're really conscious of from the beginning in regards to marketing? Because you look at your marketing and obviously it's based at that high net worth demographic, even from case studies and that kind of thing. Is that something you had to kind of consciously learn? Have you have there been kind of challenges with that as getting into that market, or has it been quite straightforward because of the background?
Yeah, so I think on the marketing side, I think we had a pretty clear idea about where we were going to position the space. I think the bigger challenge actually was you need a track record of delivery in this market, right? People need to know that if you say you're going to lend 15, 20 million, 40 million, whatever that number is, they need to know that you're capable of structuring it, you're capable of executing, right? That means a lot, in this space.
When I speak to some of the smaller lenders now, that's some of the biggest bugbears of like BDMs and loan originators and that kind of thing, is actually having the funds there to back it up and being able to do it, because it's reputation, and that's why out of 240 there's probably 30, 40 that people would consistently go to, and then other people sharking for the business. It's difficult when you're starting it to convince people that you can do it.
Exactly. Like it's completely. So this year we started out and we did a couple. We did a 10, 11, a 15, a 16, and then another 11, another 16. And it's no coincidence that then we got on to a few months ago we did a 45 million. And we're so we're now in execution on something bigger, right? And that's no coincidence, right? You start to build that track record of delivery.
When I said that people started off on those small transactions and then people trusted them and did more, it's kind of been the same for you then. It's just that your transactions happen to be 10, 11s as opposed to the the few half a mil type.
Yeah, exactly. And we do have kind of a history in this space, right? So not just myself, like our chairman, there's a guy called Nigel O'Kane. So Nigel runs a FTSE 250 business, right? Very heavily catered towards private clients, right? So we've got that kind of, I think that track record.
Yeah, we're more gravitas than say if you've just joined and go and try us.
Yeah, exactly. So, hopefully we get the branding, we got the branding right and, positioned ourselves correctly. But I think that the delivery of the transactions as well has been kind of critical, right?
Amazing. Good. So again, I speak to a lot of lenders who are, when they're starting out, like you said about getting your first few deals over the line. What was that like in regards to, was it you having to be picky with the first few deals, or was it literally wanting them, not getting them? Because I know some people waited months and months, like paralysis from analysis, where you just pick holes in every deal because it's your first few.
Yeah, so we had it. I mean, if you go back to, so we did our first loan Christmas Eve, 21, and I remember it was Christmas Eve because I was sat on the floor at my house wrapping my boys' presents while this thing was closing. So we got out of the blocks reasonably well. We had a really solid 2022. So like first full year of lending, like really good, exactly where we wanted to be. The harder one was actually 2023 because we became very, very nervous about the market. The kind of rising interest rates, right? So it became, we became exceptionally picky last year, like very, very, very deliberate in what we wanted to do, and that's obviously
right? Money.
Yeah, but think about how that jives with wanting to grow a business, right? Yeah. It's you kind of you're doing this, and maybe that's right from a credit discipline point of view, but it's not propelling the business into the stratosphere that we all want.
Everyone's stuck. Everyone's stuck. I feel like that for a while. All businesses.
So I think that's
everyone needs to take the risk, but at the same time, we're all stuck in that problem of the fact that everything, money's more expensive. It's
yeah, exactly. So I think that was that was an interesting kind of dynamic, and I think we decided that we were going to focus like heavily on credit discipline, and maybe that meant we sacrificed a bit of short-term growth. But But what we found is that this year that's paid off, right? We're having our best ever year.
Amazing.
Really, really, really strong. I think at the start, everyone in this space will view you with a degree of skepticism, right? That's natural.
Yeah.
Like, you say you can do big numbers, can you really?
Can you do it? Yeah.
Right? Yeah, and
It's
why
like you
should
say
I
with
come
the
to you?
jurisdictions, if you've never actually lent into a particular jurisdiction, that must be tough to go, yeah, we can do that. 'Cause obviously you've got to underwrite all the legalities.
That is a big underestimation. Yeah, that was a big lift. But again, but going back to the client thing, if you're focused like really deeply on the client, especially in this space, what you find is if you talk to them like openly with that blank sheet of paper, if someone's got a 10 million pound house in Belgravia, for example, chances are they've got some, they might have some financial assets, they might have a property down in Ibiza, they might have other stuff. So you can kind of, as long as you have that relationship to open it up, you can figure out a transaction from the ground up.
Is that important to you, like client over asset, if you like, when it comes to knowing that?
Yeah, the twin towers. I think they sit side by side. One is just as equally important as the other, and I think a great client would get us over the line on a good property, and a great property might get us over the line on a good client, right? So they do interact. Yeah. They do interact with each other.
Ideally, great client, great property.
Look, yeah. Great client, great property. All the document delivery is perfect. It's smooth. It's smooth from back to front.
Where they just go, that was way too easy, or do they is it always something that it?
No, look, I don't think everything's super. Anything has ever been super easy. No.
That's the space you're in, though, isn't it? That's the space.
That's the space we're in, right? And we're comfortable with that, right? It's it's high value. It's deep dive due diligence, all that type of thing. Yeah. So what's
the plans for you guys then moving forward? I know obviously you've got the new servicing offering, but what are the big picture plans for Tenn?
So I think one of the things that we're super interested in is like the industry as a whole, right? In terms of like the structural setup of the industry. Like if we think that it's an incredibly fragmented marketplace, which we do, we think that probably steers the next 3, 4, 5, 10 years, however long that journey is, in a particular direction, right? So I think there's a consolidation story here to play out. I think really interesting. A couple of weeks ago, I was on holiday actually, and you would have seen it that there was a transaction in the space, right? That a bank bought a bridging lender.
Yeah. Can we say it?
Yeah, and I think
we're saying that like it's not.
No, look, I'm sure we can say it. Now I feel awkward about it.
I know. I was like, am I the only one that knows? Tuscan and Alec bought.
Yeah,
I think it's going to happen a lot more, right?
Yeah, so I agree, and I think it will continue to happen. So I think there's one of the things that we're really interested in because of that story will be making sure that we've got some kind of tech enablement, right? So we're going to be interested in investing in technology.
Yeah.
We're already pretty high standard on the compliance side, which will be, I think, another big driver here. We probably will open an office sort of somewhere in the Caribbean, I'd imagine. We're super interested in that.
Well, recruitment wise, I'm happy to go over and have a look. I don't.
Yeah, we can do it. We can do a site visit.
Yeah, just to make sure everything's face to face over there. That's fine.
Yeah. But then, so I mean, from us, right? We want to bed in the UK stuff. We're obviously going to start doing more here in the Channel Islands as well. Yep. But then continue to spread what we do into more and more markets. We haven't actually done a loan in Australia yet. So if anyone does listen to this and has got any kind of requirement in Australia, we'd love to do something there.
I'm fine that.
So yeah,
I'm fine someone for that. I pride myself on my fixing ability. I will.
Yeah, right. Well, in fact, I think the two we haven't done is we haven't done Australia. And we haven't done Antarctica yet either. So
not a lot there, mate. I don't know if you've got the right assets for.
Yeah, it's going to be a fairly bespoke land package.
Yeah, yeah. What's the plans with it? Well, development's
Yeah,
going to be tricky. I'll be
yeah,
honest. There's not.
yeah, yeah.
What's your exit?
See if we can get Savills and Knight Frank
Oh,
out
they'll
of doing
both be out.
appraisal.
Yeah, the exit would be melting
Yeah,
away into the sea. Can you
yeah,
imagine? Great, and it has
yeah,
been genuinely really nice to talk to you, Matt. It's really interesting. I think, obviously, with your products and stuff, they're cool as well. Like,
yeah.
from an outsider looking in, there are loads of people doing the same thing. So when you speak to people who
Mhm.
are actually have put themselves out there to produce something different, I think it's cool. And also, I know some of your transactions, and they're just like it's a cool space to be in, right? You get to see some interesting stuff.
Yeah, we do. And look, thanks very much for saying it. It's the first time in a long time I've been, have been referred to as cool. So I appreciate that. Appreciate it. Appreciate that, if nothing else.
Good, good. And thank you. Like I said, I appreciate your time. Thank you, everyone watching on YouTube, everyone listening on Spotify. If people want to get hold of you, Matt, what is the best way of speaking to you?
So definitely email, LinkedIn, mobile phone's always on, any of those ways. But yeah, Tenn Capital is the best way.
Great. And obviously all of Matt and Tenn's socials will be on our socials when this comes out. And I look forward to seeing all the new servicing that you are offering people. And we will speak soon.
All right. Thanks,
Cheers,
Marcus.
Matt.
Really appreciate it. Thanks.